Farmers from all over Ireland demanding a better deal from the government, marching on Dublin to present their case. Many of them from the distant stony fields of the west had been footing it for well over 200 miles.
1966, Friday the 7th of October. A small group of men set out from Bantry at the far southern tip of the country. Farmers, members of the National Farmers Association, and they're marching on Dublin to demand their rights. The Farmers' Rights Campaign has begun. Before it finishes the following June, 9 months later, the NFA will have established itself beyond doubt as the voice of farmers, a voice the government will have to listen to if our greatest industry is to survive and Ireland is to prosper as a food-producing nation. "12 long days they'll be on the road, their numbers swelling as they pass through the villages and towns on the way. A week into the campaign, every major road in the country has its contingent of marching men. They're led by a County Tipperary farmer, the man who is the second president of the NFA, Richard Deasy, a man who captures the imagination of the general public by his military-style bearing and dress. He was a former captain in the Artillery Corps of the Irish Army during the emergency years of the war. But it's no army he is leading in 1966. A band of well-organised, disciplined, dedicated people, yes, but still men of the soil, even if, like any army, these farmers do march on their stomachs. Their main complaints have nothing to do with their swollen ankles and blistered feet. They're marching for a better deal. Livestock prices have collapsed, a direct result of something called a Common Agricultural Policy for beef, introduced in a still young EEC, based much farther away than Bantry, Brussels. There's been a late spring, a shortage of fodder, and cattle numbers are building up after a grant scheme to promote extra breeding. Prices fall disastrously from July onwards. Cattle prices fall, so too do calf prices, sheep and wool. Milk prices are low. Everything produced by the farmer seems to be hit. Things come to a head when the Minister for Agriculture, Charlie Haughey, refuses to meet the NFA's National Livestock Committee to discuss the crisis. Mr Haughey seems to be peeved over criticism from Richard Deasy during the critical back end of the year for livestock selling. The ultimate insult comes when Mr Haughey refers to the NFA as a pipsqueak organisation. Deasy replies that he'll ram that expression down Haughey's throat.
But farmers were not going to give up. And for the first time, big and small really worked together. There was nothing pipsqueak about that.
Finally, the marchers reached Dublin. It's Friday the 19th of October. Surely it's a triumph, especially when 30,000 farmers later pack into Merrion Square to hammer home their point. 30,000 estimated by the media of the day. But it's not to be. Mr Haughey refuses to meet a delegation and a long siege begins. A peaceful protest on the footpath outside the Department of Agriculture in Merrion Street. The NFA men maintain their vigil 24 hours a day. There are always at least 9 farmers there, sometimes many more. The family farm is the basis of Irish agriculture, and its very existence is under threat. 21 days and nights the siege goes on, but behind the scenes, talks produce a compromise solution, and the vigil comes to a sudden end when the farmers get their top-level meeting.
But we will not sign a blank cheque. We put very specific questions to Mr Blaney, and his answer is a complete stupidity. For example, we said, what is the duration of this council? And he says, in his reply, let this council meet and determine its own duration.
War is declared. Farmers turn out in their thousands in machinery demonstrations, still very much within the law in spite of provocation from Dublin. Then things begin to escalate. Farmers refuse to pay rates. Their goods are seized by the authorities. Even sheep and cattle are taken and brought away in lorries. Then the first overt breach of the law. Bridges are blocked all over the country. It's January the 6th, 1967, the 12th birthday of the founding of the National Farmers Association. The country grinds to a halt as transport and movement become impossible. But the media seems to get bogged down in detail, unaware that what's happening here is a fight for the very survival of the farming community.
Some emergency services, including ambulance services, were disrupted today. Is the NFA prepared to take responsibility for this?
Well, first of all, these have been very much exaggerated. There was one story of an ambulance and with a child in it, a supposed child in it in Waterford, which was supposed to have been held up, and the chief superintendent down there is in a position to testify that that ambulance was empty. There were only the most isolated cases where there was a temporary delay and the emergency arrangements to cater for the emergency services were not instantly availed of.
Do you think that there's a possibility that public opinion may be alienated by demonstrations like today?
I think when public opinion reflects on where the blame lies and sees that the problems of farming cannot even be discussed with our government, public opinion will be well able to make up its mind that the responsibility rests with the government.
Would you agree that farmers taking part in today's demonstrations may have stepped outside the law by blocking these roads?
Well, you see, there's one law for farmers and one law for the industrial worker who is protected by the law when he disrupts the nation's economy.
But would you agree that they may have stepped outside the law?
Possibly.
Mr. Deasy may be smiling, but farmers are determined to finish what they've started. Hauled before the courts for traffic offences, they refuse to pay their fines, a decision endorsed beforehand at branch meetings all over the country. Some are sent to prison, no need for handcuffs here. They're all willing martyrs for their belief in farmers' rights. By the month of May, 100 members are in jail. But this decision by the authorities only serves to strengthen the resolve of the NFA. Support grows for the association, and instead of giving in to the pressures, it seems to draw strength from the confrontation. A national commodity strike is organised, a mass rally in Portlaoise, all sending a clear message to the government: there'll be no backing down. In the end, it's the Taoiseach himself who steps in to defuse the situation. And a matter of days later, on the 12th of June, the farmers are released from prison